So for everybody, you can see on your far right, the panel, you will see a handout section. So the slides, the PowerPoint that you see here is available for download. Certainly, if you have additional questions after this demonstration, feel free to reach out to me directly. My number and email are there in the bottom left-hand corner of the slide that you're looking at currently. This is a product solution, meaning it actually has multiple pieces, and each piece can be purchased separately or as a whole, depending on what your particular requirements are. So let's get into the actual objective of today. So basically what we're going to be showing is a number of different OCR tools, and OCR is optical character recognition. We're going to be focusing on some different volume-based solutions, so things where header, footer data is important, where line item data is important, where matching might be important, and the right solution for each. So all of them are pretty much centered around data entry automation, how you can take paper, email, or electronic documents and easily extract the data so that that data can be provided to your ERP systems to drive your business process. So that's essentially what we're going to be accomplishing today. If you think about the process, most document management type solutions center around AP and HR and AR. So the reason is because if you look at the type of process, they're very unstructured documents. AP invoices from every vendor look and feel different. They're varying page lengths. They're likely different types of terminology. Some might have the word invoice number or invoice number sign. It might be in different parts. It's not an XY coordinate where you can really define that. Additionally, these types of documents are generated from outside. So the data that gets collected from the documents are really important to get into your ERP. So that data is very valuable, and that's why the data entry process is very cumbersome. So in a typical manual process, if you can kind of, and obviously every process is a little different, but basically it's a lot of human interaction. When you sort your mail in the morning or in the afternoon, you're needing to classify simply these types of documents. You know, is it an invoice? Is it a a sales order? Is it a check? Is it, what is it? And this system, and we'll show you today, allows you to basically put in all these different types of documents, and the system can classify. And the way it does is based on spatial relationships and synonyms, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But it can also separate your documents. Ultimately, if you're someone that has decent volume, you're going to need to physically separate the documents. In this electronic form, we basically can do that automatically using a number of different what we call markers to understand where a document starts and stops. Then you have, obviously, somebody has to then key this data that's on the image, whether it's an email or a paper document, into your ERP system. Obviously, that can be very cumbersome. Obviously, the biggest expense for you there is the labor. Not only do you have salary, but you also have the wage burden of benefits and other types of payroll taxes, etc. And then you also have to manually match those. And in some cases, that is done at the end of the process. So it gives the CFO, the controller, no visibility into what are some of the documents that invoices, payables that I need to accrue for, or how much sales order, orders coming into the system, dollars coming into the organization. So typically what you do is you come in, you cut the check, you post the batch, the transaction, it cuts the check, and then you staple all the backup behind that, and then somebody physically has to go and get the check signed, and somebody reviews paper. That is more and more difficult when you're in a distributed type of environment. It also creates lost documents and no ability to escalate and take advantage of a payment term. So it's a very manual process. In many cases, we don't even need to justify the expense for this type of a solution. So really the benefit of what I'm going to show you today is really the labor. Resource allocate your labor associated with data entry to more high value and work. We can typically automate up to 80 to 90% of your image processing. And what I mean by that is, if there's 10 data items on a particular invoice, we're going to get 8 to 9 of those data elements correct, and somebody would literally just have to verify the remaining 1 to 2 characters or fields that we're not accurately grabbing. Obviously, the other benefit of extracting the data up front is that we can then match that to other documents. So for instance, invoice comes in, you're going to see in our demonstration, we can go out to a database. We don't need to have the physical document of a purchase order, of an inventory receipt, or something to that effect that we can then match against. Okay, and then obviously the residual benefit is that you'll always be able to search for all these documents, and they'll all be linked together. So as the documents come in, we'll look at those particular documents and be able to tag them to one another, and you'll see that in our related documents section. So the 4 components that we're going to be showing today, the first one is the advanced capture. So this comes in 2 flavors we're going to show you. And then essentially that's going to do all of the front-end processing. That's going to do that smart OCR type stuff. And so it uses spatial relationships and synonym matching to find and extract data. It's very much artificial intelligence. The pricing's come down significantly, and this is a technology that's been out since the late 80s, but it really has garnered a lot of attention recently due to its price and adoption rates. For those of you that are already on Eclipse, great. Anybody that's on what we call legacy DocStar, we do have a license migration for you, and that would get you into the Eclipse product, which would allow you to kind of go forward with some solution like this. There is what we call advanced workflow in Eclipse, but Eclipse out of the box does come with a standard workflow. So in a lot of cases, if you're just routing one level, then you don't need the advanced workflow module. But if you're having multiple routings based on security or based on a dollar amount and cost center of a particular invoice or sales order, you're going to need workflow module. And then the last piece that I'll show is the end of the process is what we call application integrator or smart link. This allows you to basically be in your Sage, your Dynamics, your Infor product, and not know anything about Eclipse, and simply be able to hit a hotkey that would then open up all of the matching documents. So it's a nice little add-on. It could be used for anything. It's not specific to AP or any one process. All right, so how does this work? And sorry for this very long slide here, but basically, as you see at the top, we can capture from anything. You can take a picture from your mobile device. We can monitor emails. We can use desktop scanners. We can use multifunction devices or faxes. And we're monitoring for all these different types of documents. Then the classification engine essentially figures out what it is. Okay, so the more structured we can make that, meaning if you have a AP invoices at yourdomain.com email, it makes it pretty easy for us to know and classify that as an invoice. That would reduce some of the manual verification that's required. But basically, once that classification is done and we look for things like invoice, invoice number to identify a invoice. If it said dear and sincerely, we might know that that's a letter. So we use different terms, metadata terms, to figure out exactly what it is. And then we then use rules-based layouts. So this isn't template-based. Templates don't work with unstructured documents. You might have varying line items and varying layouts per vendor, or even within a single vendor you might have different layouts. So this simply uses the synonym matching capability. So we do a full OCR, and then we look for things like common terms like vendor name, invoice number, invoice date, number, and every permutation of that, and then we can extract the data intelligently. We can even support line items that span across multiple pages. So the idea is this technology, you don't have to set up a vendor. Every new vendor you get and they send you a brand new invoice, the idea of this technology is that it should read it automatically. Now, once that data is extracted, we can do all sorts of rules-based validation, so things like vendor lookups to make sure it's a valid vendor name, finding a telephone number to then find the vendor, the ability to match the documents at the line item level, and we're going to show you that as part of our process. It then allows you to front-end your ERP system. The only reason to go with something like this, percentage of your invoices are coming from certain vendors, so somebody that doesn't want to spend a ton of money on a fully automated solution on line item and all sorts of matching, this is a great solution. It comes with an OCR-assisted data entry tool called KeyFree. And you're going to see today also our ability to do what we call rapid adapt. It allows end users to quickly build templates for header and footer extraction. It is licensed by CPU, so it's kind of, hate to say all you can eat, but it's a non-per image based licensing model, which is very advantageous. It's hard to know how many documents you're going to process. It could do full line item extraction. It's not going to get as detailed as the next option that I present here, which is an Artsel product. This is something that you really need to have the larger volume to justify. It's a bit more expensive than our option 1 there, and this requires no templating at all. Full line item extraction, and it will deinterlace line items. You know, you don't always get a very nice line item across. Sometimes there are multiple line items underneath a single transaction, and so this technology can extract that. It can also do the auto separation. So if you scan in hundreds of documents at the same time, it can figure out where it starts and stops. And this would be based on the number of pages processed in a year. It's a perpetual license. Okay, so we're going to be going into a lot more detail on each of these items in our demonstration. The third is as an outsource model. So this is a partner that we work with, ScanOptics, that allows for essentially you to outsource your entire payables. So we can create what we call an easy folder, easy forward folder on your desktop, or we could set up your copier to essentially scan to this FTP site. Your documents get picked up, they get separated, all the data entry is done for you, and depending on your SLA, these could be returned to you within a couple hours, and all the data can be pushed into Eclipse as well as into your ERP. So this is where you don't want to invest in any type of software training or labor. There's a nice little video that we can provide if there's some interest in that. Let me know. All right, and then the last piece is, you know, once we extract all this data, we put it into, you know, your ERP. We also put it into Eclipse. We have what we call Application Integrator, which is SmartLink, and it allows you to essentially screen scrape to retrieve documents very easy. It's a nice feature because you don't have to know much about Eclipse. It will automatically, you know, with an F7 or whatever key you'd like, hotkey, it will automatically pop open all matching documents. So you don't really, the other approach is now we're going to select the more option 2, which is our more advanced engine. This is probably double the price of our option 1 there. And we're going to start off with a few things. We're going to do our AP invoices. So I'm going to grab a couple AP invoices here. I'm going to grab these 4. Okay. And then I'm going to just emulate a hot folder pickup. So like you were scanning from a photocopier. So it's going to basically, you'll see it gets taken. So you drop, you know, the documents in your scanner on your MFP, your photocopier. It dumps it into this folder here where we monitor and extract. Now, you know, these are more admin things, but just so you can see where the document is in the process, it's processing through our registration. It's then going to go into our recognition processing, which will allow us to, you know, extract the data from the right areas on that particular document. Okay. Okay, while that's processing, we'll also grab our sales orders. So I have quite a few sales orders here that I want to show as well. So I'm going to take these sales orders, and I'm also going to drop that into our hot folder for sales orders, so that can process at the same time, and so that we don't have to wait here. Oh, there it goes, picks up those. Okay, so our invoices should be ready by now. Okay, recognition processing for our invoices, as you see, and our sales orders were picked up. And this will say essentially whether it should go to our verification queue. Anything that it has a high confidence, all confidence-based, it will automatically export those documents into Eclipse, into your ERP. In this particular case, we're going to make sure that everything goes to validation, just so we can make sure that the documents are accurate, and also for demonstration purposes. Okay. All right, so now those documents should be ready for us in our validation queue. Okay. Taking a little bit longer than expected. Okay, good. Verification waiting. So this is where your end users will typically live. All that stuff that you just saw were more admin things, just so I can access it. But you're going to click Next Batch, and this is going to grab those invoices that we had previously put in, those 4. Okay, so this is going to do a number of different things. One, it's going to match to a database. It's going to leverage some OCR technology. So you see here, this is 3D Pipe. It leveraged the phone number to find and look up in your ERP database all of the company and vendor information. You'll also notice the line item detail and how it extracted all of that information as well. You'll also notice on the bottom that there is a warning. It's saying you need to geocode this. And I get that. I'm going to skip that. So as a result, I'm going to hit the Accept button here, and that's going to allow me to move to the next document. So instead of going through each document here, and you see how it's green now and these are red, I'm just going to click my Verify Batch, and this is going to verify any low confidence characters. So that's the first thing it's going to do. And as you can see here, it read the date correctly. It gives you a code snippet of that. So I'm just going to hit Confirm, and it's going to move to the next low confidence value. And you can see here, that's an 8, but it got a 0. So I'm going to go in and say, hey, that's an 8. Okay, and hit Confirm and move on. Okay, here's one. This is an interesting. So that is correct, but when I hit Confirm here, you're going to notice that it read 60 instead of 50. Okay, so I'm going to go in here, and I'm just going to 60. Okay, oops, 50, and then hit Confirm. Okay, so we're all done there. Verification is complete. Now we'll go through the batch verification. This is going to bring out any issues that there are concerns. So you can see here in this particular document, the total, there's no terms, it needs geocoding. I'm going to hit Accept with warnings. It's going to move to the next low confidence. In this particular case, it was trying to do a match, and it couldn't find the PO number. So if I go over here and I say your number, and I click on that, you're going to see that it now removes that issue, but it says that it's having trouble with the 3-way matching. So as you see here, when I click on the info area, it's saying, hey, there's no item number, and I can see that there's no item number, so we can't physically match this at the line item level. As a result, what I'm going to do is just hit Accept on that, because in this particular case, I don't know the part number. Invoice type, I'm just going to say invoice. Okay, and then again, 3-way matching rule, we're good there. I accepted that. I accepted that there is no item number, and also that we don't need GL coding, and we'll move on. As you see here, we have no subtotal, so I'm going to go in. I'm going to grab here we have the subtotal. I'm going to grab that, and I'm also going to look for the PO number. So let's see here, PO number is over here. And as a result, now we can see, and you're going to notice again, there's no line items for us to match again. So we're just going to go and Accept with warnings, and we're going to be able to output those particular documents now. So those 4 documents have been fully matched and basically adjudicated. So we're now going to pick up, and I think this will be a good example. We're going to now do the sales orders, and you're going to see the line item matching here in full force. I think it's a pretty cool demonstration. So as soon as this here is released, all the documents and data will be exported, and we're going to show you what ends up in Eclipse, but we're going to go and grab the sales orders now. I'm going to grab next batch here. Okay, so you could see a few things. I'm going to go through this again just to verify the batch, remove any issues that we have. Okay, so that's P, that's fine. These are any confidence issues. So we didn't have any confidence issues. Now let's see what we have for rules-based issues. So you see here payment terms. There is no payment terms. So this one I'll just hit accept with, and I'll move to the next one. Okay, so now this is, you see the PO number here. So this is generating an error. So if we go down, you'll notice that if I click here, if I click on this thing, you're going to see that this particular PO number in that line item, there's a mismatch on. So it will highlight in yellow here. It's saying in the database there were 65 ordered, but it read 64. And if you look on the document, it's 64. So it must have been short ship 1. Okay, so I'm going to accept this and say, hey, you know, we only received 64, so there'll be 1 left in inventory. So I'll hit accept on that one and have it continue to validate batch. We'll go to the next one here. And again, this is a bit different because this one is Barnes & Noble and there really isn't a price or anything. So you'll notice like the build to areas, I can now zoom and zone on those particular areas. It will automatically fill in that. Payment terms, there really isn't because it's more of a shipping receipt. So I'm going to hit accept on that. And I'm also going to look at the PO. So you can see here also that it had a database error. So it's expecting 2 quantity. And again, we picked up only 1. So there was a short ship on this one as well. But I'm fine with that. I'm gonna say, hey, move forward with those particular warnings, and now export all those documents. Okay. So all those documents are now essentially fully rendered. All the data is extracted, and let's go in now into our Eclipse system. This is what Eclipse looks like, and I could certainly search for some of these documents. So if we go into that Brewhaven, I want to look for Brew Shop, for instance. This will bring back that particular invoice, and you see that particular invoice here. Okay, so these are the data elements that were extracted for it. Now, if I go into my accounting folder, into my AP invoices, you're going to notice all the different documents here. So we have the concrete one, and you can see all the line item detail for that. You can then see here's the one for rote, and again, the line item detail. All the information is fully indexed, and all the tabular data is also entered in here. Okay, so you see not only the header information that was extracted, but also the line item data. We look at also the ones that were in our option 1 here. You see the Brew Shop McMaster car, as well as the Tau Diamond. So all those documents were essentially automatically extracted. All the data is pulled out of it and then pushed into here, where we can then have a workflow initiate. So for instance, if we wanted to route this particular document for approval as part of our process, I can enable our workflow and assign it a workflow either as it comes into the system or as a post process. So you'll see here that I'm going to take one of the documents, and it's already in here. And you're going to see that we can then route this particular document for approval. Oops. Here's the one. Okay. So we can now approve this particular document using our approval area. We can then automatically apply an approval stamp here, and then in our history, it will show all approvals that are processing throughout the system. And you can see here we've requested approval, and I've approved that particular document. We can then apply our digital signature to that particular document should we want to as part of that approval process, and then hit the save. And that will now either escalate through a hierarchy of approval levels, or for future reference, you'll see the signature and any details related to that history of that particular document. Okay, so the last piece I want to show here is our ability to do what we call image enabling. So I'm going to open up our fake CRM system. And so this works with pretty much anything. So now that we've extracted all the data, we've put it all into Eclipse, and now we're in your line of business, and we want to find the documents associated with it. So you see here we're going to be using this PO number. So it uses a screen scraping Win API-based technology. So if I hit F7, and you can program whatever you want, pretty much, it's going to automatically, as you see here, it's screen scraped and passed to a URL, the particular PO number that we're looking for. And it returns all of the matches. Basically, our demonstration for today, what I'm going to do here is I know there's a few questions, so let's workflow that comes to upgrade. Yes, so so what I've showed there with the approval is built into the current product. Basically, Eclipse comes with a one-step workflow. So if you want to go beyond one step, then you would need the advanced workflow function tool. Okay. So if there are any other questions, unfortunately, because it's GoToWebinar, I can't just unmute everybody. So if you have a kind of a hand on the side there, raise your hand, and I'll unmute you. And certainly any questions you have, let me know, and I'm more than happy to answer those. Otherwise, you'll see the handout section there. There's our PowerPoint that we provided, and this was recorded, and we can also make the screen recording available to everyone.